Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Got an exciting guest today. We're here with Ivana. We're going to go over some marketing stuff today, talk about packaging, taking products to market. It's going to be a little dual interview here. Of course, Ross is going to ask some questions. I've got some questions, but really going to do a deeper dive into some marketing stuff. But first things first, Ivana, I want to kick it off with, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, from I would love to know how you got involved with the company, but also kind of what your day to day, week to week looks like, and we'll go from there.
For sure. So I'm the executive vice president of marketing. I've been leading the company's marketing operations since inception. I actually knew Aras before the company started. We had a management consulting company together with a couple of our other coworkers as well. So I got to know kind of Aras's process early on, which actually helped me quite a bit when we first started here. So I've basically developed, launched, managed all of Avicanna's brands globally. So I've conceptualized and brought them to fruition. I've sort of identified, capitalized on some of the market opportunities as well, which I'm assuming we're going to touch on a little bit later. I have experience with traditional digital media platforms, advertising, brand development, sort of bringing awareness across several sectors. So it's good to also be able to use my previous experience to bring that to Avicanna and actually, learn along the way. Building something from scratch is obviously comes with its challenges, but I think in an industry that was very new when we first started, it's been exceptional, and there's been a lot of sort of great challenges and great learnings along the way.
Holy, okay. Whoa, yeah, that's a awesome intro. Management consulting before you guys are doing it. That's awesome. And now, yeah, you're really in the beginning stages of an industry, and you're able to find products. And I'm going to ask a question. We get a lot of feedback, people asking, how do you take a product to market? And I know there's probably an hour long answer, but I'm going to ask you to give it to me in, a minute to two. Maybe do we want to pick an example of a product, and maybe go through maybe what those challenges were, but also how you got it to a certain market, what went through, what comes through your eyes as a, marketing person, and how do you think, okay, how do we get this to the right people? How do we brand it? All that kind of stuff.
For sure. So we can use specific examples, but I think I'd actually like to sort of touch, if you're okay with this, from a broader sense.
Yeah.
We do various levels of research and trials on all our products to ensure that they go through proper reviews and checkpoints for accuracy, validation. So we work very closely with our legal and regulatory teams, as well as our medical and R&D teams as well. So not only in Canada but globally, because the markets are quite different, and you get that sort of local expertise as well contributing to that. And then I think as well on the communication and marketing side of the product, reviewing language and claims, and ensuring that not only does it resonate with the clients or the patients or the healthcare practitioners, but also that it makes sense and it actually reaches the target as it should. And I think for every launch that we do, every brand that we bring to market, education is really sort of the focus. And Avicanna definitely prides itself on being, a thought leader, and we really do invest quite a bit in research and development and sort of data, and doing everything from an evidence-based approach. So, both internally and externally, we have, comprehensive packages for training and other resources for, all our stakeholders, whether it's healthcare practitioners or patients or just consumers. So for us, I think the education is sort of the core focus for every launch, and definitely a science-first approach to everything.
Yeah. No.
And I want to just add, I mean, I think she's done an incredible job, and the rest of the marketing team, they've done an incredible job to launch different segment products, right? So there's cosmetics, there's medical, and then there's pharma. And they have a very, very different route to market. And as Ivana was saying, from a regulations point of view, depends on the market you're in, but it's completely different as well. So in Canada, a CBD consumer product, for example, a CBD cosmetic like Pura, is treated as medical cannabis or adult use cannabis, where in the United States or in Europe and in South America, Ivana's teams are marketing Pura as an over-the-counter consumer product. It's pretty, it looks nice. The segment you want to target is, a particular audience, and you build a marketing advertising strategy towards that. You take the same product, same brand, you launch it in Canada, and all of a sudden you have to treat it as basic due to the regulatory limitations as a medical product, and the focus has to be education. So I think it's really, really complex, and they've done a really good job of identifying the segments they want to target and to find that balance where I always call it a duel, where it's marketing versus legal. Marketing wants to do everything, and legal tells them they can't do anything, and it's about finding that balance.
No, hey, that's a great answer. And I actually had here written down on the side, because of cannabis, and I was going to talk even the different segments, your different countries you have to work in, all the regulatory stuff, but also how much is it a balance between educating both, whether it's the doctors, whether it's the people, whoever, and of course we've talked about the pharma sales where, really you're going to, like you said on our last video, you're going to a doctor, you're going to someone who's going to be telling people, hey, this is a product you should try, versus what people expect marketing is like a commercial. So I'm curious, if you want to talk about some of the different angles and maybe some of the things you look at and give people some insight, that'd be pretty cool.
So I think that would depend on the product line. I think from a medical perspective, the data and the science and the research that goes into really bringing a product to market, I think is really important. And we know that doctors and healthcare practitioners really value the research and the science that goes to their patients. So, putting together these training packages and, working with our medical teams to really get them engaged as well and get that feedback from the medical community and their buy-in. And I think credibility is definitely a really important factor there as well. I think on the cosmetic side, it's still sophisticated, I would say. I think from our perspective, we're targeting various types of consumers as well. So from that commercial perspective, I think really from a communication point of view, making sure people understand what it is that you're actually trying to market. And I think credibility plays a role there as well. People need to be able to trust you. They need to be able to, find value in what you're offering. And we know that the market is very saturated and there's a lot of competition. So really standing out from the crowd. And, we do really have a wellness focus for all our brands at the end of the day. So we really want to make sure that we do have the trust of all our consumers and even the healthcare practitioners as well.
Yeah, cool. No, I would love it. Maybe do we want to pick a product, like Pura, and maybe you can talk through some of the challenges, but really the successes you guys made from a marketing standpoint. How do you come up? I'm looking here, at the product on my other screen, and of course we'll flash it. What goes into like, hey, this is what we want to be on the bottle. Of course, there's the legal side, but also like from a marketing standpoint, how do you go through the process? So just to give people some insight.
I think one of the biggest challenges would probably be the regulatory aspect. There's obviously limitations to, what you can promote, how you can promote, the claims you can make, and what you can say, which is, again, kind of taking us back to the science and why we value it so much. We really want to put together, packages to educate consumers, but also bring forth products that actually, do things. So, for example, for the Pura line, we did clinical trials, and we actually wanted to see, moisture levels in the skin, and we wanted to see, a reduction of redness for certain products. And we find that information actually does come through and resonate with consumers as well. They want to know, what is this product going to do for me? People who have, certain skin issues or certain skin types, for example, in the case of Pura, they want something that's going to be functional. And that's kind of what we do. We make functional products. So I think that's probably been one of the bigger challenges. And I think Canada, especially, there's a lot of, restrictions around what you can even call the products and packaging and marketing sort of restrictions on, just what the actual presentation in store looks like. It's quite limiting. So we're definitely navigating around that, I think.
No. Let me add, Ivana, I think it's important. The part of the question to highlight is really the look and feel, right? So there is an enormous process, and I think Ivana is specifically highlighting a lot of the education part, which is key. But when we sit there, like she and her team have developed the brand, the look, the feel of these products. And when you look at them, when you look at Pura, you don't think of a cannabis product. Pura is a cosmetic product that happens to have cannabinoids as an active ingredient, right? It has that beautiful packaging and kind of that look and feel. When you look at Row, again, Row is not your traditional cannabis product. Row is a medical product line, a wellness product line that again happens to have cannabinoids. So I think that's part of the strategies, the look and feel we want to create, and that has to do with the positioning of the products. We don't really have a recreational brand, but if we were selling, for example, pre-rolls or vaporizers, it'll be a very different branding positioning for us. So ours is sort of an anti-stigma campaign and an introduction campaign on the marketing side.
Yeah, no, both great answers. It's awesome hearing, and we talk on other videos about the difference between recreational, medical from a cannabis standpoint. But now I'd love to ask from a product standpoint and from a marketing standpoint for the people that, of course, are used to the flashy, I'm buying some cannabis packaging. I would love for, maybe you guys want to give the other side of the medical, not, it doesn't have to be packaging, but just the medical part of marketing is more as a broad spectrum. I think, we're carrying on the focus on science, and we talk about that a lot. I would love to hear, Ivana, if you have anything you wanted to add in terms of, the medical approach to the industry from a marketing standpoint.
Well, I think you touched on packaging, and I think it's important to note as well that, we do look for pharmaceutical grade materials, not only from the ingredients, but from a packaging perspective as well. So, ensuring the stability of the formulation, the integrity of the cannabinoids. And I think it's important for the medical community as well to know that, what they're recommending or what they're prescribing to, their patients is going to have, a shelf life that's reliable. It's going to have packaging that's reliable, metered dosing so people can titrate. I think getting those sort of characteristics across to the medical community and really communicating that, we've done our homework, we've done the research, and we're bringing forth a product that can resemble something that doctors are used to in terms of, the way that they're recommending certain products.
Yeah. And I think just to keep adding some complimentary comments to that. Yeah. We don't want Row Phyto to look like a cannabis product, right? We want, and if you look at, again, the great job they've done on the marketing side is they've targeted a particular audience. We're not targeting your cannabis connoisseurs, which are, 23, 24-year-old men that like to smoke weed. That's not our target audience. And we've seen that from our sales, that our target audience is actually 90% 30 and above, 50% 40 and above, or 60, around the 40 to 60 range. So we've been able to target a particular older demographic, more professional demographic, and we've done that with the positioning and the branding that they've done to make the products something that a person does not have to feel like they're using cannabis. They're essentially taking care of themselves through a medical or wellness product. Yeah. It's very different, and I think, again, the misconception is everything is the same. If it's cannabis, it's cannabis, and that's really not the reality.
Yeah, no, I think you guys have done a great job, this video especially, but other ones, talking more about functionality. Really the rec side is, what type of high am I going to get? How high am I going to get, and everything else. Whereas you guys are, hey, this isn't a, yes, cannabis is in it, but this is a healthcare product. This is a cosmetic product. This is this. I think that's really interesting. And obviously, I'm sure we can do other videos going forward talking about different ones in more detail. And we definitely will do a product dive coming up. I guess here from just a general interest, and I'm sure people are going to come. And I'd love to chat. We don't need to chat about one product, but just in general, let's say, you guys are doing a lipstick or something, whatever it is, what goes through from a marketing lens. Okay, we've got this, we know this works. What goes through it from a marketing standpoint? Is it then, okay, let's come up with the right packaging, let's come up with the right target? What goes in it from a marketing standpoint? I just love for a maybe general kind of case study, I guess, to throw in here at the end.
So are you saying like a cosmetic? And if from a cosmetic perspective, again, what you will notice is we don't do lipsticks because lipstick is purely cosmetic.
I was
right?
Just throwing
terrible example. No, but I think I'm using that as a segue, and I'm joking, obviously. But
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's important to note that we're always thinking about functional products, right? So our products are categorized as cosmetics because they're skincare, but
Yeah.
they're really dermatology products, right? And I think that's the key. So again, it's look, feel, and then it's how do you then basically educate those functional benefits from a marketing perspective, because something very important in marketing for cannabis and that I think is very underrated is the want versus the need. In the case of medical, you're essentially targeting the need, right? Because especially for us, we're targeting the potential need of patients, the potential unmet needs, and the support that we can provide for a clinical pathology or an indication, and education and training of the medical community and even the patients targets that. In the case of a cosmetic, it's a want. How do you create the want? Just because you have the product there doesn't mean people are going to go buy it. So how do you create the want is, again, generally from education, but you also want the products to appeal to certain demographics. So they want to have a particular look, feel, and positioning. And I think
So
that's what they've done.
I was seeing a question. I think maybe this is a perfect video to put it in. Someone was asking, how do you get over the stigma? Let's say, okay, perfect. We're looking at this cosmetic product as an example for people that, of course, aren't huge cannabis users, or they don't really, they have a negative stigma with cannabis, let's say, and lots do. How do you guys get over that hump? Is it just all education? How do you make a consumer feel comfortable? Okay, I'll put something on my skin that has cannabinoids in it.
I think it's a combination of things. From our perspective, one of the things with respect to, let's say, packaging, for example, like we don't use, cannabis leaves. We make sure it's something that is, either from a medical side, for example, discreet, something that you can, put in your purse or keep in your bathroom that doesn't necessarily say, hey, this is a weed product. And I think that's one of those things that's important for us as well. And I know that, thinking about retail, for example, some retailers are also a little bit, iffy about having, blatant sort of cannabis, labeling on the brands that they carry. And that was something that we wanted to maintain, kind of a very, let's say on the cosmetic side, for example. Pura does not look like it is a cannabis product. So if you were to see it, let's say on a shelf at Shoppers Drug Mart, it just looks like it's another skincare brand. And we wanted to kind of be under the radar, so to speak, to introduce ourselves in a very polite way to the market, let's say.
Polite way. No, and I think THC free type of statements, like on Pura, it's CBD, it's THC free. Making those statements where necessary on the labeling, on the marketing, on the advertising has been crucial. Even with all of that said, again, the segmentation, targeting, and the positioning from a marketing perspective are critical, because when we look at something like Pura, you're naturally attracting more women, but you are attracting men from a functionality perspective. And from women, we're noticing that it's a particular group that are the early movers, the risk takers. There's almost a feeling of like, I'm kind of badass because I'm trying a cannabis cosmetic, right? And I think that's been key too.
And yeah, I'll cap it off. One kind of just and industry growth perspective, but from an adoption standpoint, which you guys are getting to, what are you guys seeing over the past couple of years? And I'll start with an example myself. Neither of my parents smoke or do anything related to cannabis, but my mom recently, past year, started using a bunch of creams that did have cannabinoids in it. So interesting to see her making that adoption. I'm curious what you guys are seeing, obviously, as the experts and as the people actually selling some of these products.
I think it's incredible how the trend is working, right? And how popular it is. And I think people are starting to understand the functional benefits of these ingredients. I've debated with so many people on so many panels where people are asking me questions around the size of the cannabis industry. And I think if you want to measure the size of the cannabis industry, you're talking about adult use. You're talking about people that want to have an intoxicating effect. But the cannabis industry is not just the cannabis industry. It's the cosmetic industry, it's the medical industry, it's the wellness industry, it's the pharmaceutical industry, because it's really the cannabinoids and their potential efficacy or utility for various industries. And you're seeing that adoption now starting to take place. So when everyone was calculating the size of the cannabis industry is going to be $10 billion, are we talking about joints and pre-rolls and flour, or are we talking about cosmetics, medical, pharma? Because it's a lot bigger than that. right? And it's really nice to see that adoption, especially with something like a topical. Like if we have a deep tissue product, great, fantastic product for pain, local pain, and is that a cannabis product or is that a pain product, right? And I think that's the differentiation.
Yeah. No, interesting. Ivana, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say the medical community buy-in is obviously, I think, a factor as well. Like you're seeing some, reputable names kind of backing some of this, trend. And I think, the more research that comes out, the greater that this is going to be. And I think there's just a general sort of trend overall with, health and wellness and really focusing on natural products, especially now, with COVID and, there's a lot of sort of panic in the world. So I think self-care is really important these days.
Yeah. So from just curious, like from a growth standpoint, I know there's a much longer answer. You guys are seeing, in your research and in your marketing, and your targeting and everyone's interest, you guys, of course, are seeing growth, and I'd love to see, compared to, if you can quickly answer, compared to maybe what was 4 years ago or 3 years ago, even, what are you seeing compared to today? Is it, hey, a lot more people are interested, are willing to take the leap of faith? I know I probably stole your answer, but throwing that back at you guys, if either one of you want to take it.
I think there's a positive and then there's a negative to this, and it's important to highlight both. The positive is the trend is global, and everyone again is focused on adult use, but adult use is Canada and the United States. Really, Uruguay is very small, but medically, the trend that cannabis can help unmet needs is very real, and it's not a trend. There's obviously real pharmaceutical, medical, anecdotal data around its efficacy. So I think the trend is very positive. The negative, and I'm going to say this as a caveat, like it's a very minor negative, I think, from some perspectives, is that everyone expects cannabis to do a lot, right? And I think that can also be a misconception. It's not going to cure your cancer and all these other things, but it's going to help with a lot of the comorbidities and a lot of the symptoms. What we've seen and what is available in clinical literature is the high placebo rate. And that's very important to note. And that's one of the negatives, is that because people have the expectation that cannabis is going to help them with so many different things, when they go into a trial, they're coming out with really positive clinical effect. And then they're finding out that they might have had a placebo. So it's this trend. There is a trend. I mean, there's actual efficacy, there's clinical efficacy, and there's obviously utility, but there's also this unbelievable expectation by everyone around the world that it's going to have a positive effect, because it really does, from up to certain limitations.
Interesting. That was a fantastic answer. Well, look, I appreciate you guys joining. Ivana, I'm going to give you one last chance. If there's anything marketing related you wanted to add on top, and of course, I imagine we're going to get tons of questions, and you'll have to come on again, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how much you liked me. But I will. Last chance. If you got anything you wanted to say, packaging, marketing related, entering new industries, I know we could talk for hours probably, but last chance before we close things up.
Ask me something. What do you want to know?
I asked a lot, from really what I think is interesting, from a testing standpoint, but I mean, testing in stores, what's when you're talking to a new store, like everyone in Canada instantly thinks Shoppers Drug Mart. How was that process to get them, hey, try this, put it on your shelf? How's the convincing standpoint? I'm really curious from that, if there's anything you wanted to say from that standpoint.
So Shoppers is actually only online, and I think that would be an incredible leap if we can see our products one day on the shelves where people can just walk in and buy, let's say, a Pura product or even potentially a Row product. Yeah. But I think, again, going back to the evidence and the research and the data, I think was definitely a driver for them. They have a certain reputation and credibility, and I think working with partners that can kind of deliver more than what's expected, I think was definitely one of the points for them.
Cool. No, awesome. And I know I'm sure there's going to be tons of questions, and we can probably do a little Q&A on marketing and some other stuff. But Aras, last time, you have anything you wanted to say or questions you wanted to ask Ivana?
How is it working in Avicanna with all these different brands and different markets and different regulatory limitations? And how do you and the rest of your marketing department survive? Is that a good question for you?
I think it keeps us on our toes. There's a lot of different projects because we definitely have some very diverse verticals. So I think there's a lot of different aspects from medical to cosmetic to, agro to raw material, API, pharmaceutical. There's so many different, things that go into just marketing one thing, let alone all of those, coming up with the brand names and going through the whole conceptualization product process, for the different verticals. I think is interesting, and it's definitely never a dull day.
Cool. Hey, that was a great question to end on. Wow, you're gonna take my job soon. No, that was fantastic. Both of you, thanks for joining. And again, I invite anyone who made it this far. If you've got questions, these are the experts. Drop them below. I know it's unique being able to give insight on the medical side of cannabis and marketing. So again, guys, thanks for joining, and thanks for anyone who made it this far in the video.
Thanks for having us.
Great talking to you.